Welcome back, and getting to this important topic, and Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry in the or attending the 78th session of the UNGA, or the United Nations General Assembly, where he is delivering Egypt's vision. During this previous times, the Foreign Minister attended a number of sessions on different issues and held meetings with a number of counterparts on the sidelines of the meetings. To highlight the issue, we have with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Hussein Harridy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Your Excellency, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, madam.
So this is a very important session, despite the non-attendance of many of the world leaders. How do you view the importance of this session? How do you view the message that is coming out from non-attendance of several of world leaders? Your reading to the scene.
Well, of course, what you are referring to is the absence of presidents, leaders of 4 permanent Security Council members out of 5. The only leader of a permanent member was the United States President Joe Biden, who delivered his remarks on Tuesday, September the 19th. And the absentees include, of course, President Xi Jinping of China, President Vladimir Putin of Russia, President Emmanuel Macron of France, and Prime Minister
Rishi Sunak.
Yes, of Great Britain. Some interpreted their absence as a snub to the United Nations. But I guess, of course, as far as Russian president is concerned, President Putin, we understand that his travel abroad runs the risk of arresting him, because the International Criminal Court has issued an international red notice to arrest him. As far as the Chinese president is concerned, I guess the domestic situation, particularly the economic front, maybe could be an explanation for his absence. As far as President Macron is concerned, he of course, France hosted King Charles III of Great Britain for the first time since he became king last year. And this is one reason given for the absence of President Macron. Another reason is that the Pope, His Holiness the Pope, paid a visit to Marseille, and of course President Macron received him. As far as the British Prime Minister is concerned, I guess Britain is expecting general elections, and the Conservatives fear that they are going to lose to the Labour. So there were a host of reasons why these 4 leaders were absent from.
Well, actually, Your Excellency, they are not just the 4 leaders. A number of other leaders, regional, also did not
I was speaking,
attend. But also there is the German Chancellor. Anyway,
I was speaking, Madam.
Yes.
I was speaking on the permanent members of the Security Council.
Yes.
But having said that, as you said, maybe other leaders were absent. But we have to underline the fact that 140 leaders attended the 78th session of the General Assembly, which is the first ordinary session of the General Assembly that takes place in person the leaders in person attended after the COVID pandemic.
Yes. Egypt there is delivering its vision, and Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri is there, where he has spoken loudly of Egypt's vision towards a number of issues. Priority for Egypt on top of them is the multilateral work within the framework of the United Nations, definitely issues pertaining the Africa and the Middle East, the conflict in Sudan, Libya, and a number of issues. Let me here take your reading to the statements of Foreign Minister on different files.
Well, as it's customary that during the session of the General Assembly, the representatives of member countries do get involved in bilateral meetings with their peers in order either to discuss some important items on the agenda of the General Assembly of the session, or to speak about or to discuss some issues in the bilateral relations between the countries concerned. As far as Egypt is concerned, of course, as other countries have done, Egypt has or will explain its positions, would explain its positions on various crises in the region. And as you rightly said, the situation in Sudan, situation in Libya, in Yemen, and which is what's more important, the situation in the occupied Palestinian territories, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and of course the fight against terrorism. Besides these regional questions, of course, there are other topics that are of great concern to Egyptian interests, like climate change, taking into account the fact that the current president of COP27, which is Egypt, would hand over the presidency of COP summits to the United Arab Emirates next December. Aside from the climate change question, is of course multilateral development aid and the other questions that are of main interest to the United Nations this time, like the Sustainable Development Goals and the problem of indebtedness, the high debt burdens for low-income countries and middle-income countries like Egypt. So there are very important questions that are of great concern to Egypt in this particular session of the General Assembly.
Two main themes for the United Nations General Assembly's this year's session, which are peace or keeping peace and the sustainable development, or preserving peace worldwide and sustainable development. Two important themes that Egypt has been also addressing and putting as high priority in all the speeches. How do you find that, and how that has become inevitable, but also the geopolitical scene is not very much supporting the two themes?
Well, I guess that we, as a founding member of the United Nations, and with a commitment to the Charter of the United Nations. Egypt has always worked for peace and security, not only in the Middle East, but in Africa and in other parts of the world, as a matter of fact. And of course, as you said, given the fact that the war in Ukraine, food insecurity, high energy prices, all these problems, all these challenges do pose a problem, a very serious one for Egyptian public finance. So Egypt has always coordinated with other like-minded countries on these questions, madam. Right. And I guess during this session, Egypt repeated or underlined its position, whether concerning peace and security issues or other issues that do have an impact, albeit an indirect one, on international peace and security, like climate change.
Indeed. Another important meeting that Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry attended, and that was very much important, beside the sidelines, important meeting on Sudan with around 50 countries, important other meetings with counterparts, particularly Russia and other European countries. How important were those meetings, and how do they reflect on the important priority files of Egypt?
Well, personally speaking, I guess the most important meeting was the meeting of the foreign minister with his Iranian counterpart. The other meetings that you refer to, madam, these are meetings, as I said earlier.
You said with the Kenyan?
Iranian, with the Iranian.
The Iranian, indeed. And Turkey also.
Well, I personally speaking, I guess the most important one was with the foreign minister of Iran. The other meetings are, as far as my experience is concerned, are ordinary meetings. They usually take place when the General Assembly is in session. Yes. But the one that drew my attention, that caught my attention, is the meeting with the Iranian foreign minister and the statements by the spokesman of the Iranian foreign ministry concerning the future of Egyptian-Iranian relationships. These statements were quite upbeat, quite positive. And the spokesman of the Iranian foreign minister said that the two ministers held a very positive meeting, and during which they discussed some problems between the two countries, or some issues, questions of interest to both countries. The other meeting that I think is no less important was the second ministerial meeting of the foreign ministers of the group of countries who gathered in Cairo last July in the summit of neighboring countries of Sudan. This was the second ministerial meeting. The first one was in N'Djamena. And this is the second meeting, and according to press reports, the ministers of these countries are working on a roadmap to bring the fighting in Khartoum to an end, and then proceed with some political moves or political roadmap to resume the path of democracy, transitional democracy in Sudan that was interrupted by the outbreak of fighting between the Sudanese army and the rapid force. So Again, these are the meetings that caught my attention.
Indeed, indeed, Your Excellency, and still other important meetings to come at this upcoming stage, or even in this in the few hours to come. Your Excellency, Ambassador Hussein Harridy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, madam.
Our pleasure. And I guess that takes us to the end of this episode. We'll be updating you with other news in these upcoming stage, and definitely the developments in the United Nations General Assembly scene. Many thanks for watching.